Mr. Martin Ngatia, the chairman of the Kenya Red Alliance, K.R.A., is increasingly gaining prominence online as a leading Kenyan revolutionary holding very radical views within Kenya's political landscape. The Kenya Red Alliance has published numerous videos with Mr. Gatia taking radical and leftist positions with regard to solutions K.R.A. is putting forward to resolve the decades-old political and economic crisis precipitated by the progressive rot of capitalism in Kenya. After the betrayal of the Kenyan opposition by Raila Amolo Odinga, and following the death of opposition politics in the country, Mr. Gatia is currently viewed by millions of suffering Kenyans as a personality who can easily seize power in Kenya if the Kenya Red Alliance decides to start an active mobilization of the oppressed people of Kenya for a power takeover. Although the Kenya Red Alliance is slowly emerging as a real political alternative to the reformist, opportunist and ideologically bankrupt political parties in Kenya, who is Mr. Martin Ngatia. The following are 10 things you didn't know about Mr. Martin Ngatia. 1. In 1982, Mr. Martin Ngatia was among others involved in the coup which overthrew the government of former dictator Daniel Arap Moi. The People's Redemption Council that was led by the late Hezekiah Ochuka, seized power for 24 hours before the coup was defeated by Moi's loyalist soldiers, forcing the perpetrators to flee into exile in Tanzania. 2. Before he left Kenya, Martin Ngatia was a Kenya Air Force airman and his profession was Technical Support Squadron, aircraft ground equipment machines, with the rank of corporal. Ngatia had been serving in the Kenyan Air Force before he fled Kenya after the coup failed. At that time, Ngatia believed that election rigging would never allow the gangster Moi regime to be toppled through a ritual called election. 3. While in exile in Tanzania, the 1982 Kenyan dissidents were betrayed by the late President Julius Nyerere. The Tanzanian president struck a deal with Moi which led to the swapping of Tanzanian exiles in Kenya with Kenyan exiles in Tanzania. When the coup leaders were picked up from the camp where they had been granted asylum, Martin Ngatia escaped the dragnet because on the morning of the dragnet, he was not in the camp as he was visiting a friend. 4. Martin Ngatia is the only surviving member of those who had been implicated in the 1982 coup because the rest were executed by Moi on 10 July 1985 after they were repatriated to Kenya by former President Julius Nyerere. Both Hezekiah Ochuka and Pancras Odio Okumu were among the top coup leaders who were executed by Moi after a kangaroo military court-martial headed by Moi's corrupt court officials. 5. While in Tanzania, Martin Ngatia teamed up with other Kenyan exiles who had been involved in the coup and the anti-Moi struggle to continue with their opposition to the dictatorship of Daniel Arap Moi. These included the late Kenyan journalist Anyongo Azumba, the late Karundi Mathan, the late Ayako Singoro, the late Opwapo Ogi, who was in charge of communications during the coup, current Senator James Orengo among others. When the dissidents were invaded by Tanzanian security, Kenyan opposition to the Moi dictatorship in Tanzania also fizzled. 6. Once in Sweden, Martin Ngatia joined forces with other Kenyan exiles who later regrouped to establish the Mwakenya movement. They formed different anti-Moi, anti-imperialist movements and organizations to continue fighting for the liberation of Kenya. Ngatia's house became the headquarters of meetings with leading anti-imperialist personalities at the time including writer Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Professor Shadrach Gudo, who later relocated to South Africa, the late Mukaru Nganga, who later founded Kenda, Koigi wa Wamwere, Mwanda Wairamanga, Okathaso and other exiles who were active in Scandinavia and the United Kingdom. 7. Martin Ngatia's professed political agenda in Kenya is not just to bring about democracy and respect of human rights but to overthrow the system of capitalism and imperialist exploitation in Kenya. Ngatia believes that while pro-capitalist politicians, bootlickers, apologists, sellouts and opportunists are to blame for the continuous political and economic crisis in the country, the rotten capitalist system is responsible for more than 55 years of debilitating poverty, economic stagnation, youth unemployment and general decay of the Kenyan economy, culture and social life. 8. Martin Ngatia believes that the solution to the crisis in Kenya is the revolutionary overthrow of the thieving capitalist ruling class, the vanquishing of the capitalist system of government and the establishment of a democratic socialist state with Kenyan workers taking a leading role in the revolutionary struggle for genuine change. 9. Although millions of Kenyans continue to plead with Mr. Martin Ngatia to return to Kenya and lead the revolutionary struggle, Mr. Ngatia's view is that political education, especially of the Kenyan youth ahead of the revolution, is critical in convincing the youth about the need for a revolutionary overthrow of the capitalist system. His view is that as political education intensifies and the youth become more conscious about their role in the revolutionary struggle, the overthrow of the exploitative capitalist ruling class thieves in Kenya will continue to gather momentum. At that point, the overthrow of this ruling class cartel and the seizure of power by the people of Kenya will not just be irresistible but also inevitable. 10. Martin Ngatia is the chairman of the Kenya Red Alliance, K.R.A., a revolutionary socialist movement whose principal agenda is the revolutionary overthrow of the capitalist system of government in Kenya. K.R.A. advocates for the replacement of the rotten system with a democratic socialist system of government as the basis of real transformation of the economic and social lives of millions of Kenyans currently languishing in abject poverty and living under subhuman conditions across the country. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and help spread the revolutionary tidings by sharing the video within your networks.